Hello, fellow voice actors. My name is Aaron Bush. Some of you may also know me as Mesden of the Voice Acting Alliance. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Voice Guide Me service, it's an online resource for amateur voice actors with the purpose of helping them better develop their voiceover skills. The webcast is the online portion of this service, which will from time to time feature some of the industry's most renowned voice actors, some of whom have graciously agreed to appear on this webcast to assist you in their voiceover development. Q&A will be performed at the end of the webcast. I would encourage you to grab a piece of paper and jot down any important notes or questions I might have missed. This webcast will also be uploaded to YouTube if anyone missed out on the opportunity. So let's get to it. Today's guest ranks amongst some of the most active voice actors and voiceover coaches in the industry through his LA local and online voice acting mastery workshops. He's provided hundreds of voices which you may very well recognize from some of your favorite video games and animated shows. Please welcome Crispin Freeman. Thanks for joining us today, Crispin.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
So, initially I took notice on the IMDb, which made it appear that you had been voice acting since 1985, and that would have made you, like, very young.
I was 13 years old, I believe, in 1985. That would have been tough, I think. I was still in Chicago. I had not yet started my acting career. So IMDb lists the production dates on shows when a show is produced. But those older shows that are listed, while that may have been when the original show was produced, we may not have dubbed that show into English until much later. So if you look at those very old shows, none of them are domestic American productions, either animation or video games. They're all Japanese productions because they were produced in Japan a long time ago, and we only dubbed them sort of recently. So that's why it may look like I've been acting since 1985, but I assure you, I did not start my voice acting career until I was wrapping up grad school, which is around 1997.
So let's look at 1997, because this was all prior to YouTube and fan dubbing. How did you go about developing yourself from an amateur level of voiceover to a professional status?
Well, I was never an amateur level of voiceover. I was an actor. I was a theater actor. I had graduated from college with a theater degree and a minor in computer science. I was really into technology. And I had been fortunate enough to be accepted into Columbia's graduate acting program. So I was at Columbia University studying acting, theater, getting my master's in acting. And while I was there, I sort of rediscovered my passion for Japanese animation. I'd always loved it when I was a kid. I grew up watching Speed Racer, Voltron, Battle of the Planets, Robotech, Star Blazers. But I had lost touch while I was in college. I attended college between the years 1990 and 1994. And during that time, while the internet existed, the World Wide Web did not. There was no hypertext transfer protocol. There was no way to do web pages. There were only sort of bulletin board systems like Archie and Veronica and Usenet. So there really wasn't any way to get media over the internet. And so I was sort of in a media blackout all through college. But when I went to grad school in New York City, there happened to be a store that sold Japanese animation called Anime Crash. And they sold it on VHS tape. God forbid. This is before DVDs. And so I was able to sort of rekindle my interest in anime when I got back to New York. Also at that time, the Sci-Fi Channel was broadcasting anime in the mornings called Saturday Morning Anime. And so I sort of rekindled my interest in animation, and an actor friend of mine, a theater actor friend of mine, realized that I was a fan of Japanese animation. He had been working with a dubbing house in New York City with Central Park Media that was doing a lot of anime licensing and dubbing and distribution. And he suggested that I audition the next time they had a show that came up. My first response was, no, I don't want to, because the English dubs are terrible. And that was back in the sort of late 90s, mid to late 90s, when some of the dubs were not so good. But then I realized that all the shows I had watched as a kid were dubbed, and I wanted to increase the quality of the dubbing for these shows because that's how most people got introduced to anime. So I reconsidered, and I called him back, and I said, sure, I'd love to audition. I got put in touch with a studio that he was working with. They called me up. They asked for a demo tape. Well, I didn't have a demo tape. I hadn't done any voiceover before. I was a theater actor. But at the time, I was producing a radio theater company at my grad school. So I took a show that we had done. It was an adaptation of an Edgar Allan Poe story. It was like 16 minutes long. It was way too long for a demo. But I sent it to him because that's all I had. I would totally not recommend doing that now. They got the demo. They said, yeah, we don't have anything. We probably won't have anything for months and months and months. 2 weeks later, they called me up and they said, well, we've got an audition for something. Come in tomorrow. You have to come in quick. And I was like, okay. And I came in and I auditioned and I booked the part, which was a little one episode character in a little show called The Slayers. The character's name was Prince Hallis. He was this young prince. He was only in one episode. And he was trying to convince the main character, Lena Inverse, to marry him in order to remove some curse. So I got in there. I did that part. I guess I didn't suck. And so they asked me to audition for some other stuff, too. And the next time I came to audition, I was auditioning for a little character called Zelgadis. They were replacing one of the voice actors in Slayers for one of the main characters. And so I auditioned for Zelgadis and eventually booked that. And it sort of took off from there.
So we got one of the viewers here who's saying the internet really makes it easier for us. I mean, a lot of us are trying to get noticed, and really with the internet we can get lucky to be picked up. So that kind of brings me to my next question here. Has the introduction of YouTube and fan-made projects made this process of recognition any easier? We've got a handful of viewers from the Voice Acting Alliance with us. Is it easy enough for them to say, I'm involved in a lot of fan dubs, I'm learning the skill, I'm developing my demo reel, pretty soon I'll be a professional voice actor?
Well, I'm not sure I understand what you mean by get noticed. I don't know any professional casting directors or voiceover directors or agents that go through YouTube to try to find talent. I just don't think it happens. I think what happens is every once in a while, someone will post something on YouTube that becomes more of a phenomenon, like that. I believe his name's Jake Fushi, the kid who had the crazy low trick voice, and then people saw it and they put him on Ellen, and now supposedly he's working with a voiceover agent. I guess that happens from time to time, and we hear a lot about it because people like to hear about those kinds of stories. But I didn't get noticed. That's not how I got started as a voice actor. I actually developed talent. I developed some talent, and then that talent was going to be useful to people who were directing and producing shows. And so then it's a matter of marketing my talent to those people so that they know that I exist, that they know that I'm available, and that they know that I can solve their problem. I mean, plumbers don't put stuff up on YouTube and expect to be hired as plumbers. Plumbers have to have talent, and then they market to people who need plumbing. People who need plumbing usually don't go on YouTube looking for plumbers. It is a common metaphor that gets used for voice acting that you're a plumber. You know, you're there. An actor in general is a plumber. They're there to solve a problem for the producers and the directors. The producers and directors have a show, and they have all these characters they need to cast in the show. So what they need is someone to come along and play those characters really well. And so what you're doing as an actor is you're saying, I can play the character better than anyone else. So I don't think that the mindset of being noticed is as important as the mindset of saying, I am a small business owner. I have a product to offer. I need to market my product to the people who need to know about it so that they will realize that I'm the best person for the job.
So let's look at your education. Obviously, investing yourself into a university degree is a pretty big jump. So where you achieved a master's degree in fine arts, would you still encourage amateur voice actors to pursue a voiceover career if they would prefer to take a more casual approach?
There is no one way to become a successful actor. You have to find your own path. Some people would say I am horribly overtrained, that I have spent far too much time in school. I have a lot of training behind me. I appreciate it. I love it. I don't think I'd change anything about the path that I took because it really was a wonderful experience for me, and I greatly enjoyed it. But there are other actors like Steve Bloom who have very little formal voiceover training. I do not believe that Steve Bloom ever went to school for acting. But what Steve Bloom did have is that Steve Bloom was working at studios. He was actually watching some of the best and most talented people in the industry work on projects. So he was learning on the job from actual professionals who were working in the industry. So it wasn't like he wasn't learning. It wasn't like he came out of the, out of his mother's womb ready to be a voice actor. He was learning. He was really studying hard, as far as I know, to make sure that he understood what people were doing, and he was learning from the best in the industry. So whether you learn on the job from the people who know what they're doing, or whether you go to a class or a school situation and you learn from experts there, you're still going to have to learn. There's still a lot to learn from other people about how to actually work on a professional level. You don't play in Major League Baseball just because you're playing around at home with the ball and a bat. You usually have to have someone help train you.
All right. So now, one of the biggest issues I seem to come across at the amateur level of voice acting is commitment. Even in many of the audition threads of the Voice Acting Alliance, for example, I frequently come across bits of information in all the little casting calls defining their expectations for commitment. So what would you define as the differences between commitment at an amateur level of voice acting and commitment as a professional level?
Well, it's interesting you talk about that, because when you say commitment, it sounds like you have to force yourself to do something, that you have to invest a certain amount of time and energy into something in order for it to work. And I have found that when I think about it for myself in terms of commitment, am I really committed to this? That it's not nearly as productive or helpful as being fascinated. Are you fascinated with this subject? If you're fascinated with this subject, you won't have to worry about commitment. You'll just keep doing it because you won't be able to help yourself. You're going to want to figure out how they made those voices. You're going to want to figure out what people are doing in the industry. You're going to want to figure out what are the trends in terms of storytelling and characters and whatnot. The commitment comes from asking yourself, I think, this question. There are people out there who are fascinated with this. There are people out there who are fascinated with creating different voices. There are people who are fascinated with animation and animated storytelling. If you are not fascinated as fascinated as those people are, how are you going to compete with them? Because they sort of live, eat, and breathe this stuff. They get up, they go to sleep at bed, they go to bed at night, and they wake up in the morning thinking about this stuff. From the outside, we would call that they are committed. But from the inside, they're just inspired. They're fascinated with this topic, and they just can't leave well enough alone. They just, I remember Jeff Glenn Bennett saying that when he was younger, he had heard of cartoon voice on TV, and he couldn't figure out how to do it. And he was trying, and then finally one day he figured it out. And he's like, oh, I figured out how to do that cartoon voice. Isn't that great? And you go, yeah, did he figure it out because he was committed? Or did he figure it out because he was fascinated? He just couldn't leave well enough alone. He had to figure out how to make that voice. That's the way to do it. If you're not that fascinated, then you can just do voice acting as a hobby. I mean, that is the wonderful thing about the internet now and all these fan communities. You don't have to become a professional voice actor. No one's forcing you to do that. You should only become a professional voice actor if that's what you're inspired to do. If you'd rather just do it as a hobby, there are plenty of people who do things as hobbies. There are people who play musical instruments as hobbies, and they don't ever plan on playing at Carnegie Hall. That's not their goal. So, I mean, the cool thing about voice acting now is that because technology is so much more affordable now, and because of the internet and having online communities, you can totally be an amateur voice actor if that's what pleases you. But if you want to become a professional voice actor, you want to play in the major leagues. And if you want to play in the major leagues, you have to be fascinated by the game. You have to be fascinated by what's going on, or else you'll never be competitive.
So we touched a bit on voice development there. There are certain forms of voiceover that would be accepted at an amateur level of voice acting, but discouraged within the industry. For example, when I initially began taking your online classes, I had a couple of different voices in my vocal library, which were rather deep and raspy and something you didn't quite like, which was something I picked up doing fan dubs. now with that in mind, are there certain forms of voiceover that would be better off left on YouTube?
I don't know if there's certain forms of voiceover. Let's go specifically with the example that you gave. When you came and took online voice acting class with me, you were trying to do characters that were sort of deep and dark and mysterious, right? The problem is your voice does not lend itself to those kinds of characters on a professional level. If you want to play those characters on a hobby level, that's fine. But if you want to play a deep, dark character, you have to compete against me. Right? So
Yeah.
if you were a producer and you had a deep, dark character and you had two actors to choose from, you and me, who's going to get the part?
No contest.
Right. Now, I'm going to get the part even if I'm not a better actor than you. Even if you are a better actor than me, if they need someone with a deep voice, they're going to hire me before they hire you. Why? Because I'm a baritone. I have a naturally deeper resonance just genetically. You are more of a tenor. Your voice is higher. You just can't go there objectively. Your genetics don't allow you to go there. So what I was trying to express to you in class was you need to play the types of characters that suit your voice if you want to work professionally.
So
because if you are... Let's go ahead.
So basically, a baritone is for somebody who has much of a more youthful style of voice who can hit the younger characters and
no, actually that's a little incorrect.
Tenor
these are terms that come from singing. So
right.
there are usually high pitched singers, medium pitched singers, and low pitched singers when you're talking about men's voices. And the terms they use for that are tenor for the high pitched, baritone for the medium, and bass for the low. So I'm a baritone. I have a low extension. I can go pretty low, but I don't sound as deep as Steve Bloom, Kevin Michael Richardson, James Earl Jones, Keith David. These guys are true what we call basses. They have truly deep, heavy voices. I don't have a voice like that. I've got a baritone voice. But my voice is not as light and high-pitched as yours. I'm not a tenor. Yuri Lowenthal is a tenor. Johnny Young Bosch is a tenor. Josh Keaton is a tenor. So you have to know what voices are in your sweet spot. And it turns out that heavy characters with deeper voices are not in your, Aaron's, sweet spot. So there's no point in you trying to compete with me to play characters that are deep. You will never get hired, and you will only be frustrated. And I don't want my students to be frustrated. I want my students to actually work. I want my students to make money if that's what they're on about. If they want to work as professionals, I want them to be auditioning for characters that they actually have a legitimate chance of booking so that they can work. That is why I kept throwing characters at you that were more in your sweet spot. That's why I kept telling you in class, one of the characters I had you play was Syndrome from The Incredibles. Hopefully most of the audience is familiar with the Pixar film The Incredibles and the main villain, Syndrome. Well, I had you audition for Syndrome. Why? Because if they could only pick one of two actors for Syndrome, and the only two actors who were auditioning were you and me, they would cast you. There is no way I could play Syndrome better than you. Your voice suits Syndrome better than me. Now, if they were casting Mr. Incredible and they had to choose between you and me, they would cast me for Mr. Incredible, even if you were a better actor. You have to know where your sweet spot is, almost like a singer. You have to know where your sweet spot is as a voice actor, or otherwise you have no chance of getting cast. So it's not so much what is or is not appropriate in terms of voice acting in some objective sense. It's rather what characters are or are not appropriate for your voice on a professional level. If you, Aaron, want to play Mr. Incredible in a fan dub, go right ahead. But you'll never get cast in the professional world that way. So for me, I'm looking at this as a professional and saying, okay, if Aaron wants to work as a professional, he's got to play the characters that he actually has a chance of booking.
All right.
Does that make sense?
All right. Now, one more question before we move on to your voice acting mastery classes, because we're starting to get into that a little bit here. This sort of ties into the previous question. I'm going to role play here a bit because it's the easiest way for me to phrase this question for the 82 viewers who are watching. Suppose I come across an audition. This is some parallel world where you and I don't know each other. Anyways, I want to provide a voice that is best suited for my own abilities, that matches the character I'm auditioning for. What are some of the key points that I want bouncing around in my head to determine the most critically important approach to winning the audition?
Be a good actor. I mean, if you want the most critical thing rolling around in your head, there is no magic bullet. I know. Do a British accent. That'll get you the job. Not if it's not a British character, right? What you're asking for is a magic bullet. You're asking for me to tell you what's the most important thing, and if you do that thing, you are guaranteed that you will get the job.
Well,
and the fact of the matter is,
not guaranteed, just for a better, more
just
better approach.
80% guaranteed, 75% guaranteed, 60% guaranteed that you will improve your chances of booking the job because you have done the magic bullet thing that I've told you to do. Turns out there is no magic bullet. You just have to be a good actor. You have to actually understand. You have to look at the copy. You have to read the copy. You have to understand the copy. You have to then decide, how do I want to play this character? When you decide how to play that character, you are pulling on all of your acting experience and all of your acting talent and all your inspiration as an artist to try to bring something to life, to try to bring this character that is just words on a page to being a living, breathing character. There's no secret to that necessarily. There are different acting techniques, and I go over those acting techniques in my classes, and I could try to talk about them in abstract, but you're not really going to understand what they mean. You'll hear things like, when people say in acting classes, what's my motivation, right? Very important. That is true. You need to know what your motivation is. You need to know what your character wants in the scene. But that's not going to be enough to win the audition. You actually have to know how to apply that, you know? I can say, this is how you hit a fastball. You hold the baseball bat this way, and you swing this way, and you make sure you don't let your shoulder drop, and you pitch your feet in a good place, and now swing the bat. Now can you play in the major leagues? No, because you haven't practiced it. You haven't had someone there watching you do it, right? You need to care more about bringing the character to life than winning the audition. Winning the audition is a side effect of being a good actor. Winning the audition only comes when you're actually talented, when you actually are good at playing the characters and you're enjoying playing the characters. You audition a lot as a voice actor. You don't book that much. Right? That's just the way it is. And it doesn't mean because you're not talented, it's because they selected someone else. Jack Angel talks about that a lot in the interview that I did with him on my podcast. It's not that you're being rejected, it's that you're not being selected. And they may not select you for any number of a million random reasons. Not because you're not the best person for the part, but because you remind them of someone they don't like. Edward Bosco said that in the last interview I did with him and Kim Lin Tran on my podcast, which is he was talking about working at Nickelodeon, and they have hundreds of auditions, up to 1,000 auditions coming in for major characters on a Nickelodeon show. They're making the decision on who plays this part many times very subjectively, right? So if you want to be successful as a voice actor, you have to be a good actor. And you need to do whatever it takes to become a good actor. This is a results-driven industry. You need to take whatever classes you need, and everyone might need something different. That's the thing. That's why there's no magic bullet. There's no one secret to it. I share with my students what I think is the most useful way and the most streamlined way to getting results in voiceover. But it's only my way. There are other voice actors out there who would probably disagree with me because they have a different way of approaching acting. Everyone has a different way of approaching acting. And so you have to discover your own way to approach acting.
All right, let's move on to your voice acting mastery classes here. As I was saying earlier, I've taken your online classes on a couple occasions. What are the differences? What differences are there between your local Los Angeles classes and your online classes?
Well, the main difference between my local LA classes and my online classes are basically what I am able to accomplish and do online. There are certain technical restrictions that make it impossible for me to do certain things online. For instance, anime. I have my anime workshops, and anime requires split-second timing, 30 frames a second with these characters on the screen and matching the video and the lip flap of the characters and everything else. That's just not feasible online. I would love to be able to do my anime classes online, but with internet lag and video problems, there's just no way to do it. However, what is very possible to do online, and many people have said they actually enjoy online sometimes better than trying to go somewhere in person, is the idea that they still get all of my directing and acting notes, and they get them from the comfort of their own home. Sometimes I have found when actors come to my classes, by being in the classroom, they get so nervous being in the classroom and being there that they sort of forget to voice act. Sometimes, for some people, it is more comfortable for them to be at home. By being at home in familiar surroundings, they don't feel threatened. There's a certain ease because they feel like they're in comfortable surroundings and that they can talk to me and they can work with me from that place of comfort. It makes them relax. It makes them more natural. So that's really great. The other thing is that people watching get to see my face. Often when and the student's face, often when I'm working in a classroom, you and me may be facing each other, and then there are other people in the class, and they may be able to see one of our faces, but not both of our faces. When we're working online, I'm on camera, the student I'm working with is on camera, and the rest of the class is watching. So they get to see both of us in real time, and it was something I didn't even expect. But many of my students said it was incredibly helpful to watch both of us in real time working off of each other and working together to try to get a better performance.
Now,
so that's... Go ahead.
Sorry, what is it that you have? You have something like when in your classes where you want to see the person, watch the person's like facial expressions as they're voice acting. What's the story behind that?
What are you asking? Why do I, as a teacher, want to see the facial expressions of the person voice acting?
Yeah, how does that help? How does that help you coach the voice actor?
Because I can see their acting. I can see what you're doing physiologically. It's not enough just to hear the voice. This is a misconception that you think that it's just the voice. I need to see your face so I can see if you can understand what I'm talking about. If what I'm getting across, like right now, you're standing here with your hand like this, which means that you're not quite sure you understand or that you believe what I'm saying makes sense. If I couldn't see your face, I wouldn't know how Aaron is reacting to my direction. I must see your face. How else can I teach you? Because it turns out that physiologically we don't lie, right? We can lie with our words, but we cannot lie with our bodies. If you walk into a room and something in the room smells awful, you go, right? You don't go, right? You don't do that. That's why people develop poker faces. A poker face is just, I shut it down. I have no reaction. But guys playing poker can't lie. They can't look at a bad hand and go, oh, it's good. They can only look at a bad hand and go, I got nothing, right? So I must see your face. How else can I teach you how to be an actor? Acting is a physical action. You are in action. That's why it's called acting. So if I can't see your face, if I can't see what you are doing, I can't help you. I can't know what's going on. You may be doing something physically that is getting in your way. Otherwise, I can't. How can I help you? Many times, in order to read the subtext of what you're doing as an actor, I need to see what's going on physically with you.
Now, I would imagine a majority of your students would be classified at. Do you have a lot of more professional students, or are they all fairly at an amateur level?
I have a range. I've had people come in who have a lot of voiceover experience who are looking to expand into a new direction. I have people who are experienced in the industry but want to expand their characters and the depths of their acting ability. But I also have people who are complete newbies who have never tried this before and want to sort of get their feet wet and see if it's something that they really like. What I make sure to do is that I always work with whatever student I have at the level they are at. I can work with beginners, I can work with experts, and I can always help them step up their game because everybody can use some help.
Now,
Everybody can use some guidance.
now, some of these voice actors have probably also sought third-party websites to develop their skills. As I was saying, we probably have a bunch of people here from the Voice Acting Alliance. How much do you know about these websites like Voices.com or the Voice Acting Alliance?
Well, those are two very different things. Voices.com is what is commonly known as a pay-to-play website. Voice Acting Alliance is a community. So on Voice Acting Alliance, what you've got is a bunch of people who have come together to create a community. People in this community will do projects together. They will work together to create different sort of fan projects. Some of them might go off to work on professional projects as well, especially from what I understand in the independent gaming community, that they'll go off and do projects like that. I know my students, Kim Lin Tran and Edward Bosco, have worked on Dust and Elysian Tale, that big game that's up for all sorts of independent game awards. Voices.com is a completely different animal. Voices.com is sort of acting like an agent. The idea behind Voices.com is that this is a service that you pay for. You pay Voices.com a certain amount of money a year. I think it's like maybe $300 or $400 a year. What you do then is they give you space on their website to host your demo, to put up some information about you as a voice actor. Then they give you access to auditions for projects. Producers come to Voices.com and are looking for voice talent. So Voices.com is sort of the middleman. It's the mediator between the producers who want to hire voice actors and the voice actors who want to work for producers. So a producer will come to Voices.com, they will submit a project, or they will look for voice actors for their project. If they submit the project, that audition is distributed to the members of Voices.com. Those members of Voices.com then audition for the part and send in their audition to the producer. The producer chooses from all the people who have auditioned for them and hires them for whatever project they're working on. Voices.com is a professional environment. It's not necessarily a social community. Maybe there are members of Voices.com that become friends outside of Voices.com or interact with each other in other ways, but it's a completely different sensibility from something like the Voice Acting Alliance. The Voice Acting Alliance is not there to make money. Voices.com is there to make money.
So it's pretty obvious to say that these websites are a good place to start in developing one's skills, but what happens when a person wants to take it a step further? I'm sure you've coached many individuals who have devoted a lot of time in fan-made material. Does it still work to their benefit when they start seeking a professional career?
Well, I'm not sure that Voices.com is a great place to start. If you're not a talented voice actor, if you don't have good acting skills, if you don't know how to record yourself well, if you don't know how to audition well for these projects, there's really no point in going to Voices.com because you won't be competitive. You'll spend all your time auditioning for stuff and you won't book anything, and you'll think, wow, this is a waste of time and money. You actually have to have talent. You actually have to be competitive before you go to a pay-to-play site like Voices.com or Voice123.com. Otherwise, you're wasting your money. Now, if you go to Voice Acting Alliance, that can be helpful, or Voice Acting Club, that can be helpful, because these are communities where you can learn from other people. Voice Acting Alliance is not organized around professional jobs. Voice Acting Alliance is a voice acting community where people are working with each other, helping each other, learning from each other. That's good. That's absolutely a good place to start. A community like that, because you get to learn from other people. You get to sort of see how people do stuff. People tend to be generous with their time because they're eager to work with people and see what they can make. Voices.com is a professional environment. There's no point in going there unless you've got talent. So how do you get talent? How do you get competitive? You usually have to get some training. You usually have to work with people who are competitive. They're the ones who are going to teach you what you need in order to be able to compete with the professionals. So yes, you need to get some training. I don't know anyone who comes, as I like to say again, out of their mother's womb, a brilliant actor or actress. Acting is a craft. No one comes out being a brilliant piano player. They have to actually practice. You know, even if you're Mozart, you have to practice. It just turns out that Mozart's father was one of the greatest piano teachers in the world. You know, Leopold Mozart was a pretty brilliant musician. So his son had an in-house coach. Doesn't hurt, right? Doesn't hurt for your father to be a good musician, for you to become a good musician. You've got to take classes with professionals. You've got to work with people who are actually working in the business if you want to work in the business. It seems pretty straightforward to me. How else are you going to do it? If you want to play in Major League Baseball, how are you going to do it? By playing baseball with your friends? Probably not. No matter how much you play baseball with your friends, you're never going to get to a professional level of baseball. You'll learn the rules of the game. You'll learn the basics. It's a great way to start. But if you decide that you want to play professional baseball, you're going to have to start training with professionals.
All right. Now, we were touching a bit on the paid-to-play services such as Voices.com. There's a few other ones, Voice123, or my personal favorite, Freelancer.com. I hear that was a rave in money laundering. Now, just like you should never pay your agent an upfront fee to represent you, do you have any more warnings about what you should avoid on a like when approaching a paid-to-play website? Like you were talking a bit about some of the things that you encourage about these websites, but what are some of the things that can come up that are
well, you're mixing two paradigms here, which I think is a little dangerous. So we need to clarify this before we move forward, because otherwise people will be confused, and I don't want to disseminate any misinformation.
Right.
First, there was a time before these pay-to-play sites. All right, so let's roll the clock back to before the internet and before these websites. Back then, when you were an actor, the challenge was you were an actor and you wanted to market your skills to producers. It was very difficult to market your skills to producers directly. You know, Warner Brothers Studios did not want actors walking down the sidewalk and trying to beat down their door to get in their office. That was not a good way to do business. So what developed over time was that actors would have agents. Now, an agent was the business partner for the actor, and the agent's job was to represent the actor and the actor's interest to whatever producer was trying to do a show. The agent would represent the actor's interests. The agent would negotiate the contracts for this actor, and for their work for the actor, the agent would get 10% of the actor's salary. That's how the agent got paid. Now, historically, over time, that has been this sort of pattern. An agent, a legitimate agent, if they decide to work with you and you decide to hire them, you work together, and the contract you sign says the agent doesn't get paid until you get paid as an actor. When you get paid $1,000, that agent makes $100. So you actually make $900 because you pay $100 of that $1,000 to your agent. Okay, so that is the classic acting paradigm that has existed since the beginning of silent films. That's sort of how actors and agents have worked. With the advent of the internet, people have decided that there's some people who don't want to use the agent paradigm. They would rather try to approach these producers directly. That's what these pay-to-play sites are doing. These pay-to-play sites are acting sort of like agents. They are being the middleman between producers who are looking for talent and actors who are looking to get hired by producers. However, their paradigm is different. They have decided not to adopt the traditional 10% paradigm. The reason being is because they open their doors to everyone. Anyone can sign up for Voices.com. Not everyone can get into an agency. An agency is looking to hire only the best people. An agency is looking to work with only the most talented voice actors. And because they're working with the most talented voice actors, they trust those voice actors will make money, so they will get 10% of something. If an agent has an actor who is not booking, they let that actor go. That agent decides not to represent that actor anymore. That's not the case with Voices.com. Voices.com will represent anyone who is willing to pay their fee. So, Because they don't know how many of their voice acting clients will get hired. So if they wait for their clients to get hired, they'll never get paid, and the website won't be able to pay its bills, and they'll go down. So it's a completely different business model. Now you have to decide for yourself which model you want to play with. Do you want to play in the traditional agent model, where you will have access to all the best projects? Because all the best stuff tends to still go through the agencies, because the agencies are sort of a clearinghouse. Producers know that they're going to get the best talent if they go to the agencies. So that's where Disney and Warner Brothers and all these people go to hire their talent. They don't go to Voices.com to hire the next voice actor to play Batman. They go to the agencies. However, if you would like to do more non-union work, commercials or things like that, there may be people who are doing that non-union work on a pay-to-play site like Voices.com. But then you have to realize that you are competing with hundreds and hundreds of people on Voices.com for these projects. Now, Voices.com asks you to pay them an annual fee for you to get access to these auditions and for them to host your demo on their website. Now, if you book enough jobs over the year, then you have paid that $300 fee, and you don't have to pay them anymore. So if you make $20,000 working on Voices.com, you don't have to pay 10% of that to Voices.com. You only have to pay them $300. But you have to make $20,000 on Voices.com. If you make zero money on Voices.com, you still have to pay them $300. And I'm saying $300. I don't remember exactly what their fee is, but I think it's somewhere in that ballpark. But these are two different business models, and you have to decide for yourself which business model appeals to you. Now, if an agent, an individual agent person who runs an office, who has a limited talent roster, comes to you and says, I will represent you as an agent, but you must pay me an annual fee, that's not legitimate. Legitimate agents don't act that way. Legitimate agents do not ask for upfront fees from their actors to represent them on their limited roster of actors. They only should get paid 10% of what you make. So if an agent does that, no, they are not legitimate. But if a website has a completely different business model and is asking you for an annual fee, that is legitimate. But you have to decide for yourself how you want to play the game.
All right, now, last series of questions here. We've touched a bit on voiceover development, so let's talk about agencies and their role in voiceover. What is your experience when it comes to agencies? What sort of qualities do agents look for when they receive a demo?
Well, I sort of talked about that just now a little bit, but I will expound on it. What an agency is looking for when they hear a demo is, I heard an agent say this, I'm looking for that cash register sound. Ka-ching! What they're looking for when they listen to a demo is they want to hear someone who they think is marketable as a voiceover talent. Remember, the producers have problems to solve. They have characters they need to cast. The agent has actors, and they're hoping that their actor can solve that producer's problem. So an agent listens to a demo and says, do I think this actor will get hired? Do I think producers will be interested in this actor? Do I think this actor can solve a producer's casting problem? This gets bundled up into this term. Do they sound competitive? Do they sound professional? That's what an agent is looking for. If you do not sound competitive, if you do not sound professional, if it does not sound like you could work in the industry right now, if it does not sound like you are as good as all the other people out there who are working, if it does not sound like this actor will make the agent money, ka-ching, they are not interested in you. Because their job is to make money. If they take on actors who do not make money, they are out of a job. They go homeless. So an agent's job is to hire actors who are talented enough to make money. So when they listen to your demo, that's what they're listening for. Does this person sound professional enough? Do they sound like they're competitive with all the other people who are working out there in the industry? If they do not sound competitive enough, I am not interested in representing them. And I will not be interested in representing them until they become professional enough.
All right, now suppose you believe that your demo is quite diverse. So you're submitting that demo, but you aren't getting a response from the local agencies. You can't very well ask the agent what you're doing wrong, because 90% of the time you're email is being ignored. So what would you suggest if you're submitting that demo and it's not hitting the right mark?
Then you're not professional enough. You're not competitive. You need more training. You need help. You need someone who is a professional to help you. Now, it's not completely untrue that agents will not give you feedback. It is rare. You're right. It is very rare that an agent will respond and give you feedback. However, it has happened from time to time, so it doesn't hurt to ask. But you're right. You may ask, and they may not give you any feedback. That's probably what's going to happen. So you've submitted your demo to an agent. They haven't gotten back to you. What does that mean? That means your demo is not competitive. You are not playing in the major leagues yet. You need to do whatever it takes to play in the major leagues. You need to listen to other people's demos. You need to figure out, what they're doing. It's not an agent's job to tell you how to get better. It's an agent's job to make sure that their clients get work. Agents have a responsibility to their clients, to the actors that they represent. They do not have a responsibility to you. You are trying to get into their roster of clients. So you need to do whatever it takes. You need to train with people. You need to take classes. The best way I know is to ask professionals. You ask professionals, does my demo sound competitive? I was working with my voiceover coach for many, many months, probably a year, and we went in to record a demo together. And we didn't go in to record the demo until he thought I was professional, until he thought I was competitive enough. And when I first came to him, he's like, you're not playing in the major leagues. You're not as good as all the other people out there. You need to get better. That's if an agent doesn't like your demo, there's only one of two reasons. The most overwhelming reason they don't like your demo is it's not competitive. It doesn't sound like you're on a competitively professional level. The only other reason, and this is very rare, and they will usually tell you if this is the reason, the only other reason they're not interested in your demo is because you sound exactly like someone else they already represent. But in general, they will say that. They will tell you. They say, hey, you know what? You are competitive. You're professional. You're really good. I would sign you, except I've already got someone who sounds just like you, and I have to honor them, and they're my client. So, wish you the best. I'm sure there's some other agency that will be interested in you.
Now, can one ever be too pushy with agencies? There's a common message out there that you should approach your agent aggressively, but where do you draw the line? I mean, is the agent going to add you to his or her ignore list if you're submitting demos to them on a month-to-month basis, or is that sort of approach encouraged?
Well, that's a tough question, because you want to remind them of your existence, but you don't want to pester them. If you pester them, you're right, they will just ignore you. If you are sending a demo every month and that demo is not radically better every month, you are pestering them. Agents don't want to be pestered. Agents want to know that you are competitive. So let's say you submit a demo and they're not interested. The only time you want to contact that agent again is if you've done something new. And what I mean...
Hold on.
Project. And you need to...
We just lost you there for a sec, Crispin.
Is there something wrong, Aaron?
The Skype session there sort of froze up a little bit. The last thing I heard from you is if you do something new.
Okay, so the only time you want to approach you've submitted a demo to an agent. The agent is not interested in your demo. They are not interested in representing you as a client. The only reason you want to approach that agent again is if you have accomplished something in the professional world. Have you booked a voiceover job? Have you worked on a new project that is high profile? Have you done something that shows them that you are working in the industry and that you have accomplished a higher level of ability than you had before? If you have not, there is no point in contacting them again. There's no point in saying, a month, 2 months, 3 months later, hey, I'm still here and I haven't changed. Are you interested now? No, they're not going to be interested now. They're only going to be interested if you say, hey, it's 3 months later and I just booked this part on this major video game that is now getting all this press. Here's an article reviewing it, and here's a reviewer saying how great the voice actors were. Oh, and look, they even called me out and they said, oh, Crispin Freeman's performance in this video game was really great. Then the agent will go, oh, Oh, they're working. Oh, they're marketable. Oh, they make money. Well, maybe I was too harsh in my judgment. Let me listen to their demo again. Maybe I was wrong. If you send the exact same demo, they're gonna go, "Oh no, I'm not interested." But if at that point you have a new demo to send them and say, "Here's my new demo." Oh yeah, yeah. No, hey, let's call him in. Let's meet with him. Maybe I overlooked something here. Maybe I was too quick in my judgment. So the only time you want to recontact an agent is when you have accomplished something. Have you accomplished something new in the professional world? No. Have you created a radically new demo that sounds incredibly better than the one you sent them before? If you haven't, there's no point in contacting them again.
All right, well, those are all the questions I have, so we're going to open the door for our viewers to field a few questions, if that's all right with you.
Sure, I'd love to hear them.
So to our 90 viewers on live stream here, if you have a question you would like to ask Crispin, please go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/voiceguideme and submit a question by clicking on the message tab next to the like button. I've already received a few questions via email, so we'll start with one of those. Let me just open my email program here. Hello, my name is Terrence Flowers from Starkville, MS. I don't live in the United States, so I'm not familiar with codes here.
MS is Mississippi.
Thank you. And I have a two-part question for Crispin. How should an aspiring voice actor go about discovering his or her character types for animation and brand for commercials?
That is a very good question. It is very important to understand both what characters you can play in animation. I call that knowing your character archetypes and where your sweet spot is. And it's also important to understand your brand when approaching commercials. That is why I teach my classes. Honestly, one of the best ways to learn how to find your archetype is to come take class with me. In Los Angeles, I teach a specific character archetype class where we go through and we just throw characters at you one after another until we zero in on which characters are really in your sweet spot. And much of it is you learning how to cast yourself as well. That's a very important skill as a voice actor now. You have to learn how to cast yourself. Other people are not going to cast you. You have to know which characters you can play the best. So I will get auditions from my agent. I actually just got one yesterday where I will get a slew of different characters. I may get 40 pages of characters. And they say, choose the best 5 and send them back. If I don't choose the right 5 for my voice, if I try to play characters that don't suit me, my agent won't submit me. I'm representing my agent badly. I look bad to the casting directors. You have to know how to cast yourself, and that can be very hard to do sometimes unless you've got someone who's a professional who can listen to your voice and say, this is where you sit. You think you can play these characters, but actually you can play those characters. So that's what I do in my LA class. In my online class, I also try to make sure that I'm working with people within their character types. I get people to submit voice samples to me before the class so I can get a sense of their voice so that when we're working in class, I have them play characters that I believe are in their ballpark, are in the sort of wheelhouse, the constellation of characters that I believe they can competitively play. And then I stress in my online class about understanding those characters and where their mindset comes from, and so that you can then go home and work on those characters yourself. Because we want you, I want you to win in class. I want you to come out of class realizing what you're good at, because you've got to develop that first before you can expand to other areas. There's no point in being able to play 10 characters sort of at 10%. It's much better to play one character at 100% and actually get hired as that character before you move on to the next character to develop in your arsenal of voices. But if you're at home and you're wanting to sort of figure out what your character types are, I would suggest that you record your voice and play it back against other people's voices. It's one thing to hear somebody's voice come out of a television and then for you to do your voice. And you think, oh, I sound like James Earl Jones. Oh, yes, I can do a deep voice like James Earl Jones. I can sound like Darth Vader. Chances are you probably can't. But you won't know that you don't sound like James Earl Jones, that you can't play Darth Vader, until you actually get on a microphone and record your voice and then play your voice back over the same speakers that you're playing James Earl Jones's voice back over, right? When you hear you're both on those things, both your voices come back, you realize, oh, I don't really sound like James Earl Jones. I sound like Luke Skywalker, or I sound like Han Solo. If you sound like Chewbacca, you may be in trouble. But you've got to sound like you've got to know what you sound like recorded. It's not just hearing your voice in the room. You have to know what you sound like on the microphone. So that's the best way. You've got to learn about these archetypes, and you usually have to someone professional like me working with you to make sure that you're not ranging too far afield. I've fallen into this trap myself many times. I was auditioning for a little video game called Justice League Heroes. They were casting the Justice League. I thought that I could play Martian Manhunter. I thought that would be a really good fit for my voice. I was wrong. Martian Manhunter tends to get played by basses, guys who honestly have truly bass voices. I don't. I'm a baritone voice. So the guys who play Martian Manhunter, it tends to be Kevin Michael Richardson, who has a huge Darth Vader-y James Earl Jones type voice, right? So when I went in for the callbacks, they said, no, you're not right for Martian Manhunter, but you are right for Superman. And so they cast me as Superman. Did I complain? No, I did not. I said, thank you for the lesson. I've now learned where my voice sits. That's where my voice sits. My voice sits in the Superman range. It does not sit in the dark side, Martian Manhunter range. So you just have to work with professionals to learn where your radar is.
All right, let's take a look at some of the other questions here. What's one thing you wish you would have been told before going into voice acting, like a piece of advice that would have helped you initially? From Jen Bobo.
What would I have liked to known before I went into voice acting? I'm not sure. That's a really tough question. I think, okay, here's one. There is a common misconception in voice acting that you must use a voice other than your own. That voice actors are expected to be the man or the woman of 1,000 voices, and you're supposed to do all these voices, and these voices shouldn't be your own voice.
Impressions.
That is impressions, or not even impressions, just different character voices. Daffy Duck is not an impression of anyone. Daffy Duck is just Daffy Duck. But Daffy Duck is not the way Mel Blanc sounds when he talks to his kids, right? Or talks to his lawyer. He doesn't put on the Daffy Duck voice. He uses his own voice, right? I think commonly in voiceover, I thought that I had to use some voice other than my own. If I had to have one piece of wisdom, if I had to start over again in voiceover, it would be nice for someone to tell me, no, Crispin, use your own voice. You need to start with your own voice first. If you cannot voice act with your own voice, you will never be able to voice act with somebody else's voice. You will never be able to voice act as a character voice. There are plenty of people out there who can do a really good impersonation of Gollum from the Lord of the Rings live-action movies, but they don't act as well as Andy Serkis, because Andy Serkis is actually a very good actor. He's just putting the voice on top of good acting. So that would be my advice. You've got to learn to use your own voice first. If you can't act with your own voice, you will never be able to act with any character voice. If you listen to Tom Kenny and you listen to him speak in interviews, his voice is just not that far from SpongeBob. He ramps it up a bit and goes, ah, but it's really not that far from his natural voice. Tom Kenny is SpongeBob, right? So you can work quite well working on your own natural voice, and then you expand into other character voices.
All right. Here's a good one. Casey Harwood from Birmingham, United Kingdom.
Nice.
Why do you think it is hard to join the voice acting career today?
Why do I think it's hard to join the voice acting? You mean to become a voice actor today?
Why?
For the same reason it's always been hard. You have to be talented. There are a lot of talented people out there. There are a lot of people for whom this is truly a passion in their lives. But the question is, it's going to be hard if you say it's going to be hard. My friend Bob Bergen plays Porky Pig. He didn't think to himself, oh, voice acting is going to be hard. He thought to himself, I want to play Porky Pig. And he'd wanted to play Porky Pig since he was a little kid. So he had the chutzpah to actually call up Mel Blanc. This is back when Mel Blanc was still alive. He actually found Mel Blanc's number in the phone directory, I believe, called him up, and at age 8 or 9 years old or something ridiculously young, he calls up Mel Blanc and says, hi, I want to do what you do. I want to come and sit in on your session. Oh, my God, right? Now, you could do that back then, right? You could actually call people. But these things, now you don't even have to call people. You have access to people like me online. You can take class with me online, you know? I would not advise you to call up voice actors now. If you call up voice actors now at home, they will hate you. That's totally an invasion of privacy. But you don't need to call them at home now. They have access online. You can follow them on Twitter, right? You can get access. It's very easy to contact me. If you want to learn to voice act, you go to voiceactingmastery.com and you email me. It's really not that hard. You want to take class with me? Sign up for classes on my website. I make myself very available online to my students. So it is hard if you say it's hard. But I didn't think to myself, oh, it's going to be hard to work as a voice actor. I thought to myself, I want to make anime better. My passion was anime. That was my entry point. And it's an entry point for a lot of people recently. You know, Steve Bloom, Yuri Lowenthal, Laura Bailey, Travis Willingham, Troy Baker. A lot of these people got their start in animation through anime. I was passionate about anime. That was my way in. I didn't think to myself, oh, it's going to be so hard to break into anime. I thought to myself, I've got to make this better. How do I make this better? What do I have to offer to the industry to make things better? And it never was, I mean, there was work to be done, but I didn't think to myself, oh, it's so hard, I'll never make it. You have to ask yourself, what do I have to bring? What do I have to bring to the table? You know, do I have talent? Do I have something that they need? And if they do, they need to know about it so they can hire me. And then they'll go, hey, where have you been all this time? God, it's so glad to have you. Yeah, play that character. Great. Awesome.
All right, let's take a look at how many messages we got on Facebook here.
Is Facebook popular? Do people go there?
We've got...
What is this Facebook kids are playing with?
3 messages. That's not too bad. Okay, this one's a bit long, so I'll just read it and see where it goes, or I'll just read it aloud and see where it goes. Wounded War Song. So 4 years ago, if you might remember, I was in a similar webcast with you, and I asked you about your Suzuki training, which I was about to embark on in my undergrad. Well, I'm graduating now, and now that I've trained and have my own process, I'm about to enter the professional world. I'm looking to shoot for New York, and I'm interested in voiceovers and narration, specifically video games and commercials. What would you say would be a proper plan of attack to start building myself up? I'm planning on shooting for stage, but I would also like to do this simultaneously. I'm also currently taking a voiceover narration class. Any advice on what I should try to and accomplish before I leave there?
Wow, that's a lot. But yes, I do remember you asked me questions about Suzuki actor training. That is a type of acting training that I have had experience with in the past. And Suzuki actor training is really good for theater work. It gives you some amazing physical control over your instrument. And it's really great. I have found that Suzuki training is not as helpful for vocal production, which is ironic Because if you ask the Suzuki people, they will say that's why you do it, that you do the Suzuki actor training because it gives you a certain type of voice. But I'm also classically trained as an opera singer, and I find that the Suzuki training doesn't necessarily help classical singing production. And I found my classical singing production far more effective and useful in my voiceover career than my Suzuki training. I love my Suzuki training for doing physical acting, and it's helped me grow as an artist. But I don't engage my Suzuki training when I'm doing voiceover. It actually pulls my voice out of its sweet spot. It doesn't help. But let's look at what you were saying about working in New York as a voice actor. You said you want to work in narration, video games, and commercials. Well, video games aren't narration, just to be clear. Video games are character work. They're acting work. Commercials are more what I would call narration voiceover, meaning that you can do it usually by yourself. And you're usually either narrating as an announcer. You may be working with one or two other people in the scene, the commercials, so they may make it more like an acting thing. But commercials have a different feel from video games. In video games, they want you to act like a film actor. They want you to have cinematic type acting. In commercials, they want your brand to help sell their product. It's a different mindset, and it's something that I've been exploring in my podcast with my good friend Juan Carlos Bagnell, who is a commercial casting director at the Voicecaster in Los Angeles. So if you listen to the most recent podcasts on voiceactingmastery.com, you'll hear us talk about this mentality difference between what it means to think of yourself as a brand as opposed to when you're acting in cinema, thinking of yourself as a character. Now, what should you do as you approach New York? The fact that you are already in a narration voiceover class is a really good step, because that's how you network. That's how you get to know other people who might be working in the industry and who might be working on different projects. That's how I got my voiceover start. I was working in the theater with other actors, and we talked about the different projects we worked on. And one of them saw that I was interested in anime. He had a connection in the anime world. He asked me if I was interested. I said yes. That's how I got Liam O'Brien into the voiceover world. Liam O'Brien, voice of Gaara in Naruto and Nightcrawler and Wolverine and the X-Men and all this other great stuff. Liam and I were doing a theater show together. We were doing a show in Cincinnati. Liam had no exposure to the New York voiceover world. He found out that I was an anime fan. He was an anime fan. We sort of geeked out together. I said, sure, I'd be happy to put you in touch with the people in New York who do this kind of stuff. And so I did, and his career took off just like mine. So that's usually how you do it, is you sort of network, you get to know people, you get to find out about different projects. And when people look at you and say, oh, that person is talented, you know what? They might be useful for this. That's how you sort of make inroads. Another way in the past I know in New York is that sometimes these different voiceover producers would post in Backstage. Backstage is a newspaper. I don't even know if they print it anymore. Maybe it's only online, but it is a magazine or a newspaper that has opportunities for New York actors. So sometimes voiceover people in New York specifically will post in Backstage. Backstage, I think, is a little more well-read in New York. I don't think it has as much influence in Los Angeles. I could be wrong about that. But Backstage certainly is a force in New York. So if you're in New York and you want to look in the voiceover world, that's probably the kind of stuff you need to do. You need to be taking classes. You need to be checking in with your fellow actors in theater, and you need to be checking Backstage, and maybe even things like Craigslist or other opportunities online to see if there's people in New York who are doing that sort of thing. The other thing that is available in New York that might be interesting, that's not that you might have better access to in New York than even in some place like Los Angeles, is audiobooks. Because most of the physical book publishers are historically based out of New York City, audiobooks and doing audiobooks for these book publishers might be an interesting way to get in. And there's a website, I believe it's called acx.com. Let me just check that real quick to make sure I'm not giving out the wrong thing. Yes, ACX. It's called the Audiobook Creation Exchange. This is a website that allows voice actors and audiobook producers to sort of get together to find each other to work on projects. So yeah, audiobooks in New York might be a great way to get in.
All right. We've probably got time for a few more questions here. Before I read off this next question, if you have a question you'd like to ask Crispin before the end of the webcast, go to facebook.com/voice, VOICE, Guide, Guide, me, M-E. This one comes from Terrence Flowers. Beside yourself, are there any other actors who offer voice acting classes online that you would recommend?
Wow, that's tough. I haven't really been, to be honest, I haven't been paying that much attention. However, there is one person I do know that offers classes online that I would totally recommend, and that's my friend Juan Carlos Bagnell. He offers commercial voiceover classes online. He really prefers to do his classes online because it helps his students feel more comfortable when they're doing commercials. So he's a great person to do stuff online. I would absolutely recommend my friend Bob Bergen, who teaches voice acting classes. But I don't know if Bob teaches voice acting classes online. I think his classes are only in person in Los Angeles. But you can always check his website, bobbergen.com, and see if he's got anything there that he offers. I do know that there are voice actors who offer online coaching. My friend Kyle Hebert, who just had the wonderful good fortune of working on Wreck-It Ralph playing Ryu. But he's also worked on Dragon Ball Z and a bunch of other stuff. He originally started in Texas and now works here in LA as a voice actor. I know Kylie Bear also does some private online coaching with people. But I don't know that many people who do a lot of online voiceover coaching. It's a little technical, and sometimes, to be perfectly honest, voice actors are not always that good at technology. I am a rare exception. I'm quite good at technology. I used to be a hacker. And also, online voice acting classes are hard to organize. They're hard to make work well. I put a lot of effort into making sure that my online voiceover classes are extremely well focused and timed, and that technically everything goes smoothly without a hitch. I spend a lot of time making sure that's the case. I make a lot of time making sure I have scripts that are easily accessible to all of my students in formats that they can easily read. This takes a lot of preparation on my part to make sure that my online voice acting classes go as smoothly and effectively as possible. So, because I want my students to spend their time working on their acting. I don't want them fighting with their technology. I don't want them fighting with a web interface. So I think it's just that there aren't that many teachers who have spent the time putting the investment in to make sure that it works when they would rather just teach people in person.
All right. This one comes from Megan from Brandon. I believe this is Mississippi again. I have a curious question. I sound like a natural young woman and almost sound like a bit British, but I don't sound like real Southern girl. Do you think the natural voice is always first practice for voice acting before you do any dialects or other accents?
Well, now we've hit, that's an interesting question because you've hit two different things. There is what I would call your natural voice, which is the sound of your voice without putting it in a funny place, right? If I put my voice in a funny place, if I make it really nasal like this isn't my natural voice. Nor is this my natural voice. I am no longer using my natural voice, right? My natural voice is the voice that I use, the timbre, the tonality, the shape of it as I'm talking to someone in my normal life. That's my natural voice. But there is something on top of my natural voice, which is if I have an accent or a regionalism. I have worked very hard in my life to try to remove or control my accents and regionalisms. I originally come from Chicago, and Chicago has a certain kind of accent that they use when they talk about things. Da bulls, da bears. You know, it's sort of a nasal, sort of Chicago sort of sound. Now, if you have that kind of accent or that sort of regionalism in the way you speak, if you come from the South and you have sort of a bit of a Southern drawl, then you may need to learn how to turn that off. Because the problem is that not every character you're going to be auditioning for has your local regional accent. So, while I say that you need to use your natural voice, what I mean is I don't want you to put on some weird cartoony voices. But if you do have a regional accent, if you talk like you're from Brooklyn and you're trying to audition for Justice League, you might have some problems, right? I don't quite sound like Superman right now. I'm not sure I sound like anybody on the Justice League right now, right? So you have to learn how to turn that off. It can serve you in the future, If you've got a perfect Southern genteel accent, when that Southern character comes up, you're going to nail that character because you are going to be so good at that accent. It's going to be so natural. But you do have to be able to turn it off. So, yes, use the natural resonance of your voice. But if you have an accent that makes you sound like you come from a very specific region of the world, you're going to have to learn how to turn that off in order to expand the types of characters you can audition for.
All right, I'd assume by turn off, because I mean, for example, people who live in England, they say we're the ones with the accents. So, but I'm assuming that animation goes by just more of a regular American accent without adding on Brooklyn or Southern or.
Yes, and you know why that is? Because that animation is produced in the U.S.
Yes.
It's for an American audience. That's why they have American accents. If you watch a film like Watership Down, a wonderful animated film about rabbits trying to survive in the English countryside, almost every actor in that film sounds British because they're British rabbits. They're supposed to sound British. It was made in England. If you watch Thomas the Tank Engine, they have British accents because Thomas the Tank Engine comes from England. But if you watch Justice League, they're going to have American accents because Justice League comes from America. So you have to decide, where you're working and whether your accent works. But if you try to get on Thomas the Tank Engine, and you've got like a really thick East London accent, and you talk like this, chances are you're not working on Thomas the Tank Engine. It's not going to be appropriate, right? You have to, or even if you're sort of Liverpudlian, if you sound like the Beatles, the chances are you're not working on Thomas the Tank Engine with a Liverpudlian accent. It's not going to happen. So you have to understand what your culture regards as a neutral accent, and you have to use that accent. Now, when I say turn it off, not eliminate it, because I don't want you to eliminate anything from your toolbox. I had a Chicago accent. I can still talk like I'm from Chicago if you want me to. I can talk like I've got a Chicago accent. It's going to be great. That's useful when they need a Chicagoan. So I don't want to erase it, delete it. I want to have that. But I want to be able to turn it off when it's not appropriate for the character I'm playing.
All right. I believe we have two more questions here. This one comes from Alan Keller. It's another long one, so I'm not sure of the...
Can you summarize it for me?
I just received this, but...
Well, can you read it and summarize it for me?
Sure. Give me a minute here. Okay, he's talking about voiceover demos. If you're on the Voice Acting Alliance, you'll know that there are practicing audio engineers just like the voice actors. Would you personally say it'd be productive to team up with a practicing audio engineer to make your first demo and open that portal to the professional world?
Well, I think it is useful to work with aspiring engineers because you'll learn a lot. It will not open a portal to the professional world. What it will do is it will give you some more experience working with engineers and working with recording your voice and experimenting with different ways to record your voice. I had to record my own voice for a long time when I was doing my radio theater programs and everything else. I learned a lot about recording technology. I learned a lot about microphones. I learned a lot about how to work on microphones. I made a lot of mistakes, which taught me a lot about how to deal with audio technology, which was really great. None of that was a portal to working professionally. What was a portal to working professionally is when I hired a professional demo producer to make me a professional demo. Now, when I walked in to work with that professional demo producer, I had had enough experience from the mistakes that I had made in the past that I knew what sounded good and what didn't. I could talk to that demo producer and say, "Oh yes, I see what you're doing there. Oh yes, that compression on my voice sounds good. I like that. Oh yeah, what if we did this?" I had the vocabulary to talk about stuff with him. So it's good practice to learn more about how to work with technology and how to work with recording. But you will not, by working with an amateur engineer, produce a professional demo. just not going to happen. What you will produce is a demo that will be an interesting step along the way. It will be an exercise to when you are ready to produce a professional demo. But when it is time to produce a professional demo, you need to work with a professional. There's sort of no way around that.
All right, we got one more question here from an Edward Bosco. Who are some of the actors that inspired you when you were growing up, and who were some of the people that you helped, or that helped you break into the industry?
Edward Bosco is one of my fantastic students. He's an excellent guy. I interviewed him on my podcast recently. He was one of the main voices on Dust and Elysian Tale. He has worked at Nickelodeon. He's awesome. And he's actually taught me a lot about different stuff when I interviewed him. Hang on a second. My favorite actors. Well, when I was growing up, the actors who inspired me were not voice actors, because I was a theater actor. So my main role model as an actor was Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly, who was the star of Singing in the Rain, An American in Paris. Gene Kelly was what we like to call a triple threat. He was an actor, a singer, and a dancer. And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an actor, singer, dancer. And I wanted to be able to do all of it. So Gene Kelly was a huge inspiration to me, especially with his dancing style. He had a very muscular, athletic dancing style, which I really admired. I thought it was cool. But as I started to go into voice acting, I started to think about the voice actors who might have influenced me, which I wasn't necessarily aware of when I was younger. But looking back on it now, I realize that some of the voice actors that influenced me the most were the voice actors in the animated version of The Hobbit. Rankin Bass, production company, produced a short film. It's a little less than 90 minutes, an animated version of The Hobbit in the 70s. And that film was very near and dear to my heart. I still love it to this day. And some of the voice actors in that really inspired me, especially Hans Conried, who played Thorin Oakenshield, and Brother Theodore, who played Gollum. Brother Theodore's performance of Gollum in that animated film is so terrifying, it still gives me nightmares. He's just unbelievable. He also went on and did a voice in The Last Unicorn. He played Rook, the servant to Mommy Fortuna in The Last Unicorn. Last Unicorn also inspired me. Tammy Grimes' performance in The Last Unicorn is unbelievable. Her playing of Molly Grew in The Last Unicorn is just, she steals the entire movie. She's unbelievable as Molly Grew. Those are probably movies. Yeah, when you listen to her first scene with the unicorn, when she first meets the unicorn, is just heartbreaking, just tear-jerking. To hear that kind of emotional depth and gravitas in an animated film is so satisfying. I also was inspired by Peter Cullen and Frank Welker. Peter Cullen's voice, even though I didn't know who he was at the time, he plays Optimus Prime. Peter Cullen, amazing. And Frank Welker, I didn't even know who he was at the time until much later. But the fact that Frank Welker played Megatron, and he played Fred on Scooby-Doo, and he's in everything. I mean, Frank Welker, oh my God. And I got to work with him on 2 Scooby-Doo episodes, and got to sit across from him in the booth and listen to him do both Fred and Scooby, which was like weird to hear Fred's voice coming out of a man sitting in front of me. I was like, how is this possible? So those have really inspired me. In terms of the help I got was from my fellow voice actors. Or fellow actors. There was the actor friend in New York who helped me start getting into anime. Then when I got into anime, I started meeting other voice actors. One of those voice actors happened to be a little actor called Steve Bloom. Steve Bloom and I had worked on a number of different projects together. And Steve was really helpful. He was willing, because we were both professionals, because we were both working in the industry, and because we had respect for each other's work and talent as artists, he was willing to spend time with me to talk to me about the industry. I wasn't just somebody calling him up out of the blue. I was someone who was working with him. And I said, Steve, hey, I'd love to pick your brain about voice acting and some of your stuff on voice acting. He's like, sure, let's go get coffee. So as two industry colleagues, we went and had coffee and talked about stuff. Bob Bergen and I met at a convention, and he had just finished working on Spirited Away. And Bob Bergen and I had great conversations, and he said, hey, I've got this event that I do in Los Angeles where voiceover people get together and talk. Why don't you come join us? Great, sure, why not? Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who directs Naruto and directed, Cowboy Bebop. Mary Elizabeth McGlynn and I met at a convention. We were both guests at the convention. And she said, hey, you're pretty good. I should hire you if you come to Los Angeles. So, I met Greg Weisman. I met Greg Weisman, who was the producer of the Disney animated series Gargoyles. I met him many years ago. In 2001, I met him at a convention. I was working as a professional, and he said, yeah, you're talented. I'm working on this Team Atlantis show. If you come, I'd love to hire you maybe for something. Unfortunately, by the time I got to L.A., they had canceled the show. But 6 years later, he's working on a show called Spectacular Spider-Man. He's like, yeah, I think you might be good for Electro. Why don't you come in and audition? I did. They cast me as Electro. Then they started working on Young Justice. And they said, hey, you should audition for Young Justice. You're good. Why don't we hit? And now I'm on Young Justice. That's usually how it sort of works.
All right. Well, I think those are all the questions we have from the community. Is there anything you wanted to conclude with before we call it quits?
Wrap up. I'd just like to say thanks so much for having me on. Thanks also for being willing to talk about what it really takes to work as a professional. It is very important to me that I help my students work at a professional level. If you were playing baseball, there's no point in me teaching you how to play like an amateur. You might as well learn how the professionals do it, because it's going to make your game that much better. Even if you don't end up playing as a professional, why swing the bat badly? Swing the bat the way the pros do it, And so that's what I try to do in all of my classes, whether they are in Los Angeles or online. I am wanting to work with my students and show them what it takes to work as a professional. And I'm going to assume that they've come to me because they want to learn what it takes to work as a professional. If you want to work as a professional or not, that doesn't really matter to me. That is your choice. You get to do what you want in your life. But if you come to me, I want to help you step up your game. I want to make you better. I want to make you work on that level that when you get done with what you've performed, you look at it and you go, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I don't know how to make that any better. That's as good as it can possibly be. We like to call that winning. I like to help you win. I like to help you to win at whatever you decide to do. So that's why I try to work so hard in my classes to help my students, to really help them grow. I'm not satisfied unless my students have stretched by taking class with me, that they know that there's something else that they can work on, that they can go home and practice things on their own, that I've opened their eyes in some way to looking at things differently. And that's why many of them have gone on then to work as professionals. And I just got a wonderful tweet from one of my students recently saying that there was a whole bunch of my students in a workout group over at Bang Zoom. They were working on doing anime stuff. And they said they kept referencing things I had said in class and different characters I made. I had portrayed. I love that. I love planting the seeds and then hearing about them flowering, because acting really is that way. Acting is not push a button, get a result. That's the way computers work. It's not the way art works. Art is you have to plant the seed and you have to wait for it to grow. You have to nurture it. You have to help it get better. You have to prune it when it's not going in the right direction. It's a constantly iterative process as you get better and better. And that's always my goal in all of my classes, is to help my students get to the next level so that they can decide what they need to go and do next. I always want to inspire my students to be self-determined artists, to be self-determined actors, so that they can find their own path to becoming successful in voice acting, whatever that may mean for them. Whether that means enjoying doing their fan dubs, enjoying doing wonderful parodies of stuff, or whether that means working with me on the next animated series or the next video game project where we're working on the same project together. So that's why I suggest if you want to work as a professional in the industry, please come work with me. Come listen to my podcast at voiceactingmastery.com. Listen to the podcast. See if I appeal to you as a teacher, if what I'm saying makes sense, if it rings true to you on some level, if it sounds like stuff you've never heard before. Come work with me. Come take classes with me online or in Los Angeles. It'd be great to work with you. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this stuff on a serious professional level. not just sort of fluffy bunny, just have fun with it. I hate that. I hate when directors say, just have fun with it. What does that mean? That doesn't help me. I always want to work on actual things that will help you improve as an artist, to help your game get better. So I look forward to meeting some of you in the future. Hopefully we'll get to work together in class. If not, I hope to hear from you on my blog and podcast. Hopefully you'll leave questions and comments on my blog and podcast on voiceactingmastery.com. So thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us, Crispin.
You bet. You're welcome.
And that's it for our webcast. For those of you who are part of the Voice Guide Me Facebook page, I encourage you to stay part of the community, as we're going to try and bring in more guests in the weeks to come. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time.